Are you ready to learn about a conspiracy theory that barely anyone ever hears about? This is something you'll only read about on the dark web, something that the mainstream media will never touch. Deep-sea divers whisper about it, and scientists make vague references to it in their research papers. But amidst all these rumors, one thing is clear. Something is going on here, and it has to do with a very strange, dark substance that goes by many names. Black goo, the black carpet, Antarctic fungus, the list goes on. Is it all the same organism, or are these strange organisms actually different species of cryptids, not yet accepted by mainstream science? In the end, it doesn't really matter what you call it. This stuff keeps getting mentioned by paranormal researchers. Black goo appears in many Hollywood movies, perhaps most notably Prometheus.
There's 51 million people entering another
surveillance camera capturing the
unidentified flying
lockdowns and mass testing.
today that the world is going to end.
First, let's tackle the black carpet. This is a phenomenon that has been witnessed by many deep-sea divers in the past. These divers tell slightly different stories, but the basic premise is the same. At the bottom of the ocean, there's some kind of multicellular organism that seems to creep along far below the surface. Some say this creature can be massive, at least a mile long and wide. Apparently, it is capable of morphing into different shapes, and at times, divers have felt threatened by it. It is black and has feelers that seem to walk along the ocean floor, sucking up nutrients in the process. According to some of the more out there accounts, this thing can also exhibit signs of intelligence. Some divers have even stated that the black carpet can morph into human-like shapes, perfectly mimicking the divers it comes into contact with. There are also accounts of divers being dragged down and consumed by these creatures. But wait, are there any marine creatures that even remotely fit this description? Let's first examine the siphonophores. These are strange oceanic predators that are related to jellyfish and corals. And yes, they're pretty weird. Some can even reach sizes of 100 feet. And each siphonophore is actually a colony of genetically identical creatures called zooids. Some zooids help the creature swim, some help it digest food, and some help it capture prey. There are hundreds of different species of siphonophores out there, and some inhabit the deepest parts of the ocean. Could it be that we just haven't discovered a rare form of this creature? Something that deep-sea divers have been seeing for decades? Perhaps. One thing is clear. There are many deep-sea creatures that biologists aren't even aware of. Remember, we know less about the bottom of the ocean than we do about the dark side of the moon. But there's one problem with this theory. Siphonophores really aren't that smart. So what kind of creatures could be capable of mimicking divers and exhibiting such high levels of intelligence? Well, there's really only one type of marine animal that does make sense in this context, and that creature is called a cephalopod. Many marine biologists believe that there is a yet undiscovered form of cephalopod. Deep in the ocean, this unknown creature could be even more intelligent than the various forms of octopus, cuttlefish, and squid we've already encountered.
Known until it was spotted, first by fishermen off the coast of Indonesia in the 1990s. It looked like an octopus, but it could morph its shape in an instant to appear as seemingly any animal around it.
Dr. Helen Scales believes that there might be a species of giant octopus hiding somewhere in the depths of our ocean, stating in 2019, "I'm quite sure there are undiscovered cephalopods out there. Whether any really big ones are still out there, I'd like to think so. but there's really no knowing until someone is in the right place at just the right time to spy one. The truth is that mysterious squids and other cephalopods are being spotted all the time. Giant squids are notoriously difficult to document because they hang out at incredibly low depths. When people do manage to film these creatures, the footage is stunning. It's clear that there are things at the bottom of our oceans that look like they belong on another planet. Biologists are often left completely baffled when this footage is published. In addition, many cephalopods have the ability to shapeshift and mimic their surroundings. Some of these creatures are even capable of perfectly mimicking man-made objects like anchors or chains. Maybe the reason we haven't discovered a mysterious new form of cephalopod is because whenever we get close, it simply bends into its surroundings, becoming invisible. With all that said, the cephalopod theory doesn't really fit either. After all, the black carpet was described as more of a colony of organisms, rather than a single animal-like squid or an octopus, and the flat, creeping nature of the mysterious creature doesn't really match any of the known cephalopods. There's another deep-sea cryptid that we should mention in this discussion, called the bloop. In 1997, researchers heard a sound that they believed to be emanating from a yet undiscovered marine animal. Based on the sound profile, they hypothesized that the creature was massive, even bigger than a blue whale. Essentially, the sound is just too powerful to come from any whale we're aware of. Mainstream researchers have backed away from this theory, adopting a more conservative belief instead, and stating that the sound was actually caused by fracturing ice. Speaking of ice, let's head to Antarctica and examine more evidence of this strange phenomenon. In February of 2021, researchers drilled through half a mile of ice in the southern continent, finding a collection of strange animals. These researchers were completely shocked to find living things in this kind of environment, but the nature of the animals surprised them even more. The truth is that there are all kinds of weird organisms living under the ice in Antarctica. Some are known as microbial mats. These are some of the earliest life forms on the planet, and they can consume almost anything as food. Back in 2009, researchers discovered black goo floating around the Arctic Ocean. They were completely baffled by the substance, which they admittedly was not man-made. A Coast Guard member stated that this goo was some sort of naturally occurring organic or otherwise marine organism. Another official revealed that he found remains of dead animals within the goo, such as jellyfish, bones, and feathers. This would suggest that the mysterious organism is predatory in nature. There are also widespread accounts of viruses and fungi that have been frozen in Antarctic and Arctic ice. Some of these organisms are millions of years old, and here's the crazy part. They can come back to life and infect humans when the ice melts. Some researchers reported strange infections after being exposed to melting ice sheets, including bizarre skin infections, anthrax outbreaks, and more. Some of these infections have been deadly. Perhaps the most worrying thing about this is simple. Humans don't have any antibodies for viruses and bacteria that have been dead, or at least dormant, buried under ice for millions of years. Scientists have proven that simple organisms and plants that have been frozen for millennia can be de-thawed and brought back to life. Perhaps we should be careful about what we resurrect from dead. Some of the most interesting forms of life discovered in Antarctica include new types of fungus. Perhaps the most interesting of these types is called Cryomyces antarcticus, discovered in 2005. Very little know about this type of fungus, although scientists have learned that it is capable of exposure to outer space and cosmic radiation. Does this simply suggest that the fungus is incredibly tough? Or could it suggest that the fungus actually came from space? This organism is also known as cryptoendolithic endemic black fungus, and one research paper stated that several of these species are opportunistic human pathogens that can cause neurotropic infections. This means that the black Antarctic fungus can infect people's brains. So what exactly happens when someone is infected by black fungus? The condition is actually quite rare, but it can affect the lungs, the skin, and the brain. Interestingly enough, black fungus infections have increased in recent years, especially during the pandemic. The infections first rose in India before spreading to Afghanistan, Russia, and other nations. At the time, Russian doctors warned that this type of fungal infection had a 50% mortality rate. Not much else was revealed about the strange medical conditions, especially while COVID-19 took center stage. But one thing was clear: the black fungus was killing people. So where does this all leave us, and what does it mean? At the end of the day, we can only come to one conclusion. Our planet is much stranger than any of us think. There are alien-like organisms lurking on the planet's most remote areas, from the bottom of the ocean to its deepest sheets of ice. As we continue to explore these places, who knows what we might encounter? On one hand, it's exciting to think that there are probably all kinds of new creatures just waiting to be discovered, but on the other hand, there's something more frightening than the unknown, especially when you consider the dark, strange rumors about black goo, black fungus, and the black carpet.